A grocery store makes about 2 pennies of profit on every dollar you spend. That's one of the thinnest profit margins of any business on earth. So how does a store surviving on pennies decide exactly what ends up in your cart? The answer is that almost nothing in that store is where it is by accident. Every shelf, every smell, every song has been engineered to move product. Let's start with the most valuable real estate in the whole building. It's the shelf right at your eye level, roughly 5 feet off the ground. Stores call this the buy zone because that's where hands reach first. Products on the top and bottom shelves sell far less, so nobody wants them, which means eye-level space is scarce, and scarce things get sold to the highest bidder. Big brands literally pay stores to sit at eye level, and it's called a slotting fee. A slotting fee is a payment just to get your product onto the shelf at all. For a new product across a national chain, these fees can reach millions of dollars. So the food you see isn't the best food, it's the food with the deepest pockets. This is why small brands almost never get eye-level space in a big supermarket. They simply can't afford the entry ticket, so you never even see them. Now look down low where the cereal with the cartoon characters lives. That placement is deliberate because it sits at a child's eye level. The store isn't selling to you there, it's selling to the tiny negotiator in your cart. And a child's demand is one of the most reliable sales tools ever invented. Next, notice what greets you the second you walk through the doors. Almost every store hits you first with flowers and fresh produce. This isn't for beauty, it's a psychological warm-up designed to soften you. Fresh, colorful, fragrant things put you in a good, generous mood. A relaxed shopper spends more and questions their choices less. It's also why the bakery vents its smell straight toward the entrance. The smell of baking bread makes you hungrier, and hungry people buy more. Shopping hungry can raise your total bill by a noticeable amount. Now think about where the milk is, all the way at the back. Milk is the single most common thing people come in to buy. So putting it at the far wall forces you to walk past everything else. Every step past a shelf is another chance to grab something you didn't plan on. That's the whole strategy. Make the trip as long as possible. The same logic explains why store layouts change every few years. When you can't find things on autopilot, you slow down and browse. And browsing shoppers spend more than shoppers who know exactly where to go. Now let's talk about the floor beneath your feet. In the wine or gourmet sections, the tile sometimes changes texture. The rougher floor makes your cartwheels rattle, so you slow down. Slower carts near the expensive stuff means more expensive stuff sold. The music overhead is doing the same quiet job. Slow, gentle music makes people move slower and linger longer. Studies have found slow music can meaningfully increase what people spend. Fast music, by contrast, is used to push crowds through at peak hours. Even the lighting is tuned to make food look as fresh as possible. Meat gets warm, reddish light, and produce gets cool, bright light. Those tiny water sprays on the vegetables are theater too. The mist makes produce look dewy and fresh, but it also adds weight. And plenty of produce is sold by weight, so wetter greens cost you more. Now here's where the real money hides, in the pricing tricks. Look at how prices almost always end in 99 cents. Your brain reads the first digit and rounds down without asking permission. $4.99 feels much closer to $4 than to $5. This is called charm pricing, and it has been fooling us for over a century. Then there's the classic 10 for $10 sign. Each item is just $1, so you rarely have to buy 10 at all. But the big number anchors your brain into buying way more than you needed. That's called anchoring, planting a number so nearby numbers feel like deals. Limit signs work the exact same way, quietly telling you to buy more. A limit implies the item is scarce and popular, so people grab extras. In tests, adding a purchase limit can more than double how much people buy. Now let's follow the money because the store's own profit is barely the point. Remember, on groceries, the store keeps only a couple cents per dollar. So the real profit engine isn't the food, it's the fees and the data. Every loyalty card you scan is a trade, discounts for your shopping history. That data is worth a fortune to the brands selling on the shelves. Big grocery chains now run entire advertising businesses off that data. It's called retail media, and brands pay to target you with coupons and placement. For some retailers, these ad businesses are far more profitable than the food itself. So in a strange way, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold. Now back to the shelves, where store brands are quietly winning. The store's own private label products usually cost you less at the register, but they often earn the store a much bigger margin than the name brands. That's because there's no big brand in the middle taking a cut, so the store places its own brand right beside the expensive one to tempt you. Often the store brand is made in the very same factory as the name brand. You're paying extra for a logo and a marketing budget, not better food. Now consider the deli counter and the hot food bar near the front. Prepared meals carry some of the highest margins in the entire store. A rotisserie chicken, though, is often sold at a loss on purpose. It's called a loss leader, a cheap item that lures you in the door. Once you're inside for the bargain, you fill your cart with profitable things. That cheap chicken pays for itself many times over in everything else you grab. Milk, eggs, and bananas are usually loss leaders too. Bananas are often sold at or below cost just to signal low prices. They're the most bought item in America, so their price shapes your whole impression. If bananas are cheap, you assume the whole store is cheap. That's why stores obsess over the price of a few famous items. These are called known value items, prices customers actually remember. The store keeps those famous prices low and quietly raises the ones you forget. You never track the price of spices or condiments, so those margins are fat. This is how a store can feel cheap while still making its money. Now let's talk about the deadliest zone of all, the checkout lane. You're stuck waiting, tired, and out of willpower after a long trip. So they surround you with candy, gum, and magazines you never planned to buy. These impulse buys are tiny in price but huge in profit margin. Decision fatigue is real, and the checkout is where it's exploited. By then, you've made hundreds of small choices and just want to leave. One more candy bar barely registers as a decision at all. Even the size of your cart is a psychological trick. Shopping carts have grown enormous over the past few decades. A bigger cart makes your purchases look small, so you feel free to add more. When one chain doubled cart sizes, spending reportedly jumped by around 40%. The empty space in your cart is a silent invitation to fill it. Even end-of-aisle displays, the end caps, are pure profit machines. Products on end caps sell far more, often just because they're there. Many end cap items aren't even on sale, they just look like a deal. Brands pay extra fees for those end cap spots too, just like eye-level shelves. Now let's zoom out and look at real prices, because they've been climbing hard. Grocery prices in the United States spiked sharply in recent years. Overall consumer prices tell the same story, rising fast after 2020. When costs rise, the pricing tricks become even more important to hide it. That's where shrinkflation quietly enters the story. Instead of raising the price, the package quietly gets smaller. The chip bag stays the same price but holds fewer chips inside. You feel like prices held steady, but you're getting less for your money. The unit price on the shelf tag is your one defense against all of this. It shows the cost per ounce or per pound, cutting through the packaging games. Stores print it small and often in a confusing spot for a reason. The harder that number is to compare, the easier the pricing tricks work. So where does all this leave the humble shopper? Almost every step of your trip has been quietly designed by someone else. The layout, the smells, the music, and the prices all point one direction. They all gently push you to spend a little more than you meant to, and it works because the average trip ends with unplanned items in the bag. The store earns pennies on food but wins on volume and fees and data. The counterintuitive part is that none of this feels like manipulation. It feels like a pleasant, easy trip, and that's exactly the point. The best designed influence is the kind you never even notice. So the next time you shop, notice the eye-level shelves and the winding path, check the unit price, ignore the end caps, and never shop while hungry. You can't turn off the tricks, but you can learn to see them. And once you see them, that pennies per dollar store starts to make sense. It's not selling you food, it's selling you a carefully guided experience. And you, quietly, are paying for the whole show.